Okay, so we can proceed to the next one, Lara-Sophie Dey, who will be not only speaking about climate change, but about decline and extinction of the speckled buzzing grasshopper, Bryodemella tuberculata, in Central Europe. Lara, are you there?
Hi.
Hi, we can hear you. Yeah, we can see you and your presentation is there.
Great.
Welcome.
Welcome everybody. Today I want to give you a short talk about the decline and extinction of the speckled buzzing grasshopper, Bryodemella tuberculata in Central Europe. And this, as you already said, is not just a study about climate change. So, first of all, I want to introduce you to this little hopper. This is Bryodomela tuberculata, also known as a speckled buzzing grasshopper. It belongs to the Oedipodines and can measure up to 4 centimeters. It has beautiful red wings, which you will see in the next slides, and it has a very specific flight. For those of you who don't know the species, it is going up in the air, falling down, catching itself, and by this, it's doing a buzzing sound. And based on this, it prefers very specific habitats, like open riverside areas or steppe regions in Mongolia. And this brings us already to the distribution range, because this is pretty huge. So you can find the species from the western parts or from Central Europe up to the eastern steppe regions in Russia. And this means a spanning of more than 7,500 kilometers between the most eastern and western distribution. But what we see in Central Europe is a decline of populations in the last century. In red, you see all the extinct locations we were able to find. And in blue, you see remaining populations. For example, here in the Alps and here on Sweden, Öland, you find also some in Romania. But this decline brought us to the question, is the population decline a consequence of the climate change? And moreover, does a decline in the populations also mean reduced variability? To answer this, we used an ecological niche modeling approach and collected 280 present and 100 extinct locations. These were captured in a period between 1873 to 2019. And we got this data by doing a lot of field work in Mongolia, Russia, Kazakhstan, Germany, China, so all over the scale. And we did also a very big literature survey and collected data from museum collections in Asia and Europe. Furthermore, we used also open data from GBIF. And what you need to know for this presentation is that the present location is in our case documented after 1999 in a 10-kilometer radius. And to simplify our analysis, we used every location as a population. So for doing ecological niche modeling stuff, you also need some ecological data. And this we got from WorldClim. We downloaded their 15 bioclimatic layers and divided them in 3 sets. Set 1 composed all bioclimatic layers, set 2 just the temperature layers, and set 3 the precipitation layers. And what we basically did is that we took this 280 extant occurrences and the 15 bioclimatic layers into ellipse ENMNR. And this program is calculating the Mahalanobis distance for each location to the ecological core. What means lower Mahalanobis distances are more ecologically suitable. And we extrapolated this data to whole Eurasia, as you see in this little map here, and plotted our 100 extinct locations on this map to get the Mahalanobis distance of the extinct occurrences. And this is what we got. This is a very nice bar plot which shows the Mahalanobis distance to the number of records. And what you see in red are the extinct Mahalanobis distances, and in blue the extant, so present locations. And it is easy to see that the Mahalanobis distance between the absent and present locations is nearly similar. This can be also seen on the geographical scale. So here are the maps for all bioclimatic layers, here for the temperature layers, and here for the precipitation layers. And yellow shows regions with high ecological suitability, or also a very low Mahalanobis distance. And if you look at these white points, which show the extinct locations we recovered, they are mostly on yellow regions, so on ecological suitable areas. That's why we also checked a bit the geographical distance. So we calculated the geographical distance of each location to the geographical core. And you see that the blue points, or blue bars in this case, show the present locations which are broadly distributed over the graph, but the extinct ones are just at the edge. And this means we have ecologically suitable areas, but the geographical distance to the core is quite big. So what does it mean? Is the population decline a consequence of the climate change? What we know is that climate change leads to increased temperatures and less precipitation of many landscapes. What means this could be a desertification of the landscapes. But as Bryodomela prefers steppe habitats with open landscapes, it should more or less profit from the changing climatic circumstances. But what we see is a decline of the populations in Central Europe. So we hypothesize that climate change is not the key factor which causes the decline of the species. And that's why we had to go deeper into this landscape change and looked at the landscape change from 1900 to 2000. I know these pictures are very small and it's not easy to see any difference, but you will see in the further slides. What's easy, or what you should know from this slide, is that most of the grasslands in Central Europe were changed to agriculture areas. And we also know that there's a big change in the structure of natural riversides. And as you all know, there's a lot of urbanization. So going a bit deeper into these habitats, we see here at the left side, the upper Isar rivers in 2009. And here on the right side, the same side in 2020. And what has changed is the vegetation. So there is there's so much vegetation. And this is just because of missing floodings of the Isar. A more drastic picture we can see in Denmark. So these both pictures are taken in 2019 and show former distribution spots of the hopper. So on the left side, you see agriculture area, and on the right side, an overgrown heath. So going into the landscape change in Denmark, it's an awful picture, because we see in 1900 a lot of grasslands in whole Denmark, and 2000 everything has changed to cropland and forest areas, a lot of settlement. So it's a hard change. But if the populations are declining based on the land cover change, and Bryodomela is not an obvious victim of the climate change, does the decline in populations also mean reduced genetic variability? For this, we analyzed, we used DNA barcoding and amplified the CO1 region for 34 specimens from the whole distribution range, and calculated the TCS networks. And what you see here is that the circles share several distributions. This one is composed of German samples, Mongolian samples, Russian samples, and Lithuanian samples. And there's just a little distance to all the other circles. And this means it's a huge distribution range of the hopper, but the genetic distance, in CO1 at least, is very small. And we also had a look at the effective female population size. And for this, we separated our data set in Asian samples and European samples and compared the skyline plots. And what you see is over most of the time, the effective female population size is similar. And nowadays in Asia, it's more or less stable, while it's shrinking or declining in Europe. And this means the diversity within the European locations is shrinking. So summing up, does a decline in populations also mean reduced genetic variability? We know that the Asian and European samples are genetically uniform. This means there's no differentiation possible using the CO1 data. But the skyline plots suggest a population decline and stability in Europe. And this could mean a population decline despite suitable habitats. And edge effects could be also present. So if you remember, we looked at the geographical distance to the geographical core. Here, populations at ecological and geographic edges could be endangered. But we haven't lost our hope. So in 2009, the species was rediscovered in the Bryodomela military area in Lithuania. And this could maybe mean a resettlement would be possible, more or less in theory. And we know that saving and conserving Bryodomela by conserving open areas, like for example, military areas, which are necessary to keep open anyways, this would be possible to preserve small islands of suitable habitats. And furthermore, the reduction of tourism, like in the Isar River, for example, and well-planned nature reserves could save not just Bryodomela. We do know several species which are endangered from open habitats, like Gamsocles glabra, Sophus stridulus, or Ephippogadionus, for example. And with this impression, I would like to close my talk, and many thanks for all the funding opportunities. And if you have any question, don't hesitate, email me or go to my colleague, Oliver Havlicek, he's in the auditory.
Thank you, Lara. Are there any questions for you? Yes, there are.
Hello, my name is Apostolis Stefanidis. I have a question about the vegetation encroachment. Why do you believe this started in the first place? And if you have any measures to recommend for conservate some openings in this vegetation?
Do you know, or do you want to know when it started to decline in Europe? Or
in your study, you say that there is a vegetation and shrubs start to spread.
Yes, it's pretty quickly. So, like a few years, and well, for example, the place where I was raised up, there was a very nice heath when I was a kid, and now 10 years later, there's like a small forest, more or less. So like a lot of shrubs, and I guess it's pretty fast. So we have to be.
Okay, thank you.
I think Oliver can also add maybe to this.
Thank you. It depends a lot on the different habitats. So it goes really fast in all habitats, but it depends. So one, for example, where the heathland habitats, this mostly, so the shrub encroachment mostly started when the type of land use changed from traditional pasture to other types of land use, or when pasture just stopped. Whereas in the rivers, it was mostly when the flood regime changed. And then, the vegetation started growing. And as Lara said, it's really fast, but it started at different points of time, depending on which habitat.
Thank you. Any more questions, remarks? No? Well, thank you. There's one. Sorry. Axel. I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
You can't have ice everywhere. It's very interesting to see that actually there's this population in Lithuania in a military site, and you know the Finnish one is also on a military site. So that we have the one in Öland, which is the Alva, which will not overgrow because of this type of special soil there, where it's actually no chance for plants to grow, but still some parts are overgrowing. But I think this species is quite safe there. And I just remember that some local authorities in our area said the best conservation sites we have in Germany are the large military areas and not the protected areas. So this appears to be also true for this species. And maybe this is also a chance. I don't know if if all the military areas have been checked for Orthoptera, because they're sometimes, in some countries, less accessible than in Germany, for example. So maybe there's still a hope to rediscover more, or reintroduce them there.
That's a good thought.
Thank you,
Lara,
Axel.
yeah, you want to reflect on this?
No, I think it's nice. Thank you for sharing this information. And I think, yes, let's check some military areas. I mean,
Great. Thank you, Lara, for your presentation.